Good evening, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on March 12, 2025. I think I got the date wrong earlier. It is Wednesday. I hope everybody is well. Well, I've got some news for you, and thank you, SDL, for the article. But before I get into the article, the reason I have this cute little painting here by Sawlight42 on eBay is because today I received my American Express bill. So you're probably thinking, well, big deal. You receive yours also, right? Now I received my American Express bill. I was wondering where it was. And the bill says that my payment due date is March 11, 2025. So today is March 12, 2025. And I thought that was really unusual because American Express is really good about mailing things. And I've been an American Express member for more than 23 years. They're always congratulating me on the phone for being such a long-term card holder. So I called them and I asked them, I said, can you tell me when you mailed my invoice? So they gave me the closing date, and then they said that we mailed your invoice February 14. Oh, what's today's date? March 12. From February 14, it took all those days to get here. Now, how many of you have your mail sabotaged? Items stolen, broken, opened, closed. I actually had a check removed from an envelope, and the envelope was sent to the person I was paying, and the check magically disappeared. It never turned up. I had to put a stop payment on it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the criminals that are stealing my invoices. I know why they're doing it too. Because each time you pay late, you get like a little mark on your credit score. And I have a high credit score because I pay my bills on time. Unlike what the narrative that they're spreading in the community, that, oh, you don't pay people, she doesn't pay people. Oh, if you continue to clean her property, you will be part of our lawsuit. According to Mary, quite contrary. Yeah. She threatens teenagers working on my property with a lawsuit for cleaning my property. So, meanwhile, the trash invoice that I was supposed to receive last month, I never received that one either. But lo and behold, I'm about ready to throw out my trash because I keep paper trash separate from regular garbage that gets picked up. Because the regular paper trash I can use to start a fire in the burn pit. So I save that. Well, lo and behold, my trash invoice was stuck in that pile. I didn't put it there. It's called a psychological operation. These people come and go from your home. They want to ruin your credit. They don't want you to pay your bills. So somebody intercepted my Federal Express invoice that was mailed February 14, and I received it today, March 12. So I'm going to give a shout out to the criminals that steal mail. Now listen to this. It's dated March 6, 2025. By DELL CAMERON in Wired, the Wired magazine. Trump's spy chief urged to declassify details of secret surveillance program. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, has long held anti-surveillance views. Now she oversees a key surveillance program she once tried to dismantle. And look at her face here. Oh my goodness. Poor woman. Former U.S. Congressman Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's ascendance to Director of National Intelligence last month signaled a major shift in views towards government surveillance at the highest rung of the U.S. intelligence community. While backing down from time, for a time, of some of her more extreme anti-surveillance views in the run-up of her confirmation, Gabbard nevertheless held fast to a few promises of reform that have been traditionally eschewed by federal law enforcement leaders. Now, some of the nation's premier civil liberties organizations have begun lobbying America's top spy, quote-unquote, to follow through on a pledge to bring about new levels of oversight and transparency to a key U.S. surveillance program that has long been plagued by reports of misuse. Led by the American Civil Liberties Union, at least 20 major privacy groups this week urged Gabbard to declassify information concerning Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, the nation's cornerstone wiretap authority that, while aimed at collecting intelligence on foreigners overseas, is known to vacuum up large quantities of calls, texts, and emails belonging to Americans. Could you imagine? You have a business. You're doing some business with people that live in other countries. Or maybe you're even traveling to another country and, well, you get placed on the list. In a letter first obtained by Wired, the groups privately urged Gabbard this week to declassify information regarding the types of U.S. businesses that can now be secretly compelled to install wiretaps on the U.S. National Security Agency's behalf, NSA. While there's no secret that the government routinely compels phone and email service providers like AT&T and Google into conducting wiretaps, Congress passed a new provision last year expanding the range of businesses that can receive such orders. Legal experts have warned in advance that the provision was far too ambiguous and likely to vastly increase the number of Americans whose communications are wiretapped, but their warnings were not heeded. It's widely assumed that the classified purpose behind the expanded authority is allowing the government to obtain access to communications in U.S. data centers. Oh, that must be like those fusion centers, the 80 of them across the country. Lawyers for the U.S. Justice Department attempted to unilaterally expand the reach of the program in 2022. But its efforts were foiled by the secret surveillance court that oversees FISA, and only Congress has the power to expand FISA, the department was told. And as a matter of secret law, lawmakers were unable to specify much about the limits of the government's access in the provision they ultimately passed. This inevitably led to the adoption of a vague new definition for what the government calls an Electronic Communications Service Provider, ECSP. The term for companies whose cooperation can be compelled under FISA. So they can go behind your back to your service provider and say, hey, give me all the records. Privacy experts and industry leaders had likewise raised concern about introducing ambiguity into law that defines the scope of a powerful surveillance tool, warning the changes could expose a near limitless range of new businesses to secret government demands. As Wired reported last spring, opponents of the provision in Washington had cast the surveillance program's new parameters as effectively Stasi-like, a reference to the defunct East German secret police agency notorious for infiltrating industry and forcing private citizens to spy on one another. Oh, well, that sounds familiar. If you see something, say something. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, a renowned privacy hawk, has served on the Senate Intelligence Committee since just after 9/11, has referred to the new provision as one of the most dramatic and terrifying expansions of government surveillance authority in history. Declassifying the new types of businesses that can actually be considered an ECSP is an essential step in bringing about clarity to an otherwise nebulous change in federal surveillance practices, according to the ACLU, and other organizations joined in its effort. Without such basic transparency, the law will likely continue to permit sweeping NSA surveillance on domestic soil that threatens the civil liberties of all Americans, the groups wrote in their letter to Gabbard this week. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence did not respond to the multiple requests for comment. In addition to urging Gabbard to declassify details about the reach of 702 program, the ACLU and others are currently pressing Gabbard to publish information to quantify just how many Americans have been incidentally wiretapped by their own government. I have been. Me. I'm raising up my hand here. Me. And I know you too. Everybody. I know because I be talking to some of you guys on the phone and I hear clicks going on in the background. Intelligence officials have long claimed that doing so would be impossible, as any analysis of the wiretaps would involve the government accessing them unjustifiably, well, we should do anyway, effectively violating those American rights. Oh yeah, you know how they twist things? Oh my goodness. The privacy groups, however, point to research published in 2002 out of Princeton University, which details a methodology that could effectively solve that issue. The intelligence community's refusal to publish the requested estimate undermines the trust and weakens the legitimacy of Section 702, groups say. Gabbard is widely reported to have softened her stance against government spying while working to secure her new position as Director of National Intelligence Apparatus. During the 116th Congress, for instance, Gabbard introduced legislation that sought to completely dismantle Section 0702 program, which is considered the crown jewel of U.S. intelligence collection and crucial to keeping tabs on foreign threats abroad, including terrorist organizations and cybersecurity threats, exhibiting a stance far more extreme than those traditionally held by lawmakers and civil society organizations who've long campaigned for surveillance reform. While begging off from this position in January, Gabbard's new espoused views have in fact brought her more closely in line with mainstream reformers. In response to questions from the U.S. Senate ahead of her confirmation, for example, Gabbard backed the idea of requiring the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I have a hard time saying that, to obtain warrants before accessing communications on Americans swept up by the 702 program. Slews of national security hawks, from former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner, have long opposed this warrant requirement, as traditionally have all directors of the FBI. I can't imagine why. This warrant requirement strengthens the intelligence community by ensuring queries are targeted and justified, Gabbard wrote in response to Senate questions in late January. Oh, yeah. The Section 702 program was reauthorized last spring, but only for an additional 2 years. Early discussions about reauthorizing the program once more are expected to kick off again as early as this summer. Sean Vitka, Executive Director of Demand Progress, one of the organizations involved in the lobbying effort, notes that Gabbard has a long history of supporting civil liberties and refers to her recent statements about secret surveillance programs encouraging. Congress needs to know, and the public deserves to know, what Section 702 is being used for, and how many Americans are swept up in that surveillance. Section 702 has been repeatedly used to conduct warrantless surveillance on Americans, including journalists, activists, and even members of Congress, adds Kia Hamadanchi, Senior Policy Counsel for the ACLU. Declassifying critical information, as well as providing long overdue basic data about the number of U.S. persons whose communications are collected under this surveillance, are essential steps to ensuring transparency as the next reauthorization debate approaches. So that's an interesting article in the Wired magazine, Wired newsletter. Trump's spy chief urged to declassify details of secret surveillance program, March 6, 2025. I will show you here. And I hope everybody's doing well. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, and sure, feel free to share this. Signing off for now.